Welcome to this presentation of the Western Ohio Railway. In this video, we visit my dad's HO scale layout. We'll see a typical operating session, discuss the story behind the layout, and talk about my dad. More than any other video I will ever publish, I sincerely hope you will sit back, relax, and enjoy all the exciting HO scale model railroading action on the Sedarville and Western. It is with a heavy heart that I narrate this video. The images that follow are exactly what I plan to publish. The audio is not. In July 2023, my parents went on vacation. I took advantage of watching their house to run my dad's layout and record a typical operating session. The goal of the video was twofold. First, record my dad's layout and with his voice describing what he had built and the inspiration behind it. The second reason was to publish a video of Dad's layout so he could see the likes and the comments from other model railroaders. Dad was always shy about promoting his layout. I think he felt it was too small and not extravagant enough to be considered interesting to other modelers. Ironically, as I learned in making this video, the simplicity of the layout and its flawless operation make this a great model railroad. When my parents returned from vacation, I shared the video with my dad. He loved it, and we began making plans for him to do the narration. But before we could start, he was rushed to the hospital for chest pains. 2 stents were placed, and we thought we were back on track. The complications from the stent procedure forced Dad back into the hospital a couple days later. The next 6 weeks took their toll, and Dad passed away on September 23rd. It is heartbreaking that we didn't get to finish this project together, and I regret that he'll never see the compliments I'm sure he would have received from this video. I take some comfort in the fact that he saw the video, and I know that he loved it, and he liked seeing his layout from a different perspective. During his stay in the hospital, we talked quite a bit about some of the changes he wanted to make to the layout and future videos he wanted to create. I said in the opening that I especially hope you'll enjoy this video. I mean that more than you can ever know. I really do hope you'll watch the video, and if you do enjoy it, like it so that the family can see how much his work was enjoyed and appreciated. Since I am doing all the narration after my dad passed, I'm going to alternate between describing the operating session and talking about my dad and his inspirations for the layout. I'll start with the opening shot. We are in Hampton, West Virginia. I have no clue if there is a real Hampton, West Virginia, but if there is, that is not the inspiration for this scene. The truth is, Dad never named the locations on his railroad. I suggested names for the purpose of the video. My sister lives in Hampton Roads, Virginia, and that is the inspiration behind the name for this location. What you see in this scene is Engine 573, an ex-Wabash 260 mogul, working the yard at Hampton. Hampton is home to a small yard, a team track with a loading dock, and the Sedarville and Western engine house. Beyond the west end of the yard, the main line continues a short distance to a gravel pit. The day starts with 573 pushing back to the gravel pit loading area. The pit is located beyond the tree line, where dump trucks are loaded with gravel. The gravel is delivered trackside to a front loader, which loads hopper cars using a small conveyor. Loads are pulled each morning, while the empties remain for loading during the day. Once back in Hampton, 573 will switch the team track, picking up cars destined for Cedarville. Let's watch 573 do its work before heading east. There are several places in the video where I show all of the switching moves. I did this originally because I wanted to record the entire operating session and figured I would edit the video down afterwards. But because my dad has passed and the layout is likely not going to be operated many more times, I'm keeping the entire video intact. I will give indicators on the screen so you can jump ahead to where the action resumes. With work complete in Hampton, 573 is ready to head east. Dad always liked the scenic aspect of model railroading. This scene was one of his favorites. A short train slowly maneuvering between a deep cut in the forested hills, the train disappearing from view around the backside of a mountain. Dad loved views that could stand on their own. Scenes that were pleasant to look at even when there was no train in sight. When I was young, I can recall him explaining to me that when he designed a scene, that's how we see railroads most of the time, without a train. We catch up with our train at Marwin. There are no industries in Marwin, just a crossing, some company houses, and a small bridge over 10 Mile Creek. This is a short scene, so I'll talk more about Marwin on the return trip. Now we reach the hustle and bustle of the modestly large town of Cedarville. Cedarville is the eastern end of the line. It is the only interchange on the railroad where cars are received from and delivered to the Norfolk and Western. The Sedarville and Western switches the east end of the yard. Freight is delivered to one track, while the loads of gravel are sorted to a dedicated track. The N&W will collect several loads of gravel before sending them out on a manifest freight. Empty hoppers and freight cars headed to Hampton are picked up for the return trip west. For those familiar with Cedarville, Ohio and Cedarville College, you may have noticed in the opening the misspelling of the name Cedarville. So I need to blend a couple of stories here to paint the full picture. I'll start with the name Cedarville. My dad attended Cedarville College. It is a small Christian college east of Dayton, Ohio, located in the small town of Cedarville, Ohio. Dad remained loyal to Cedarville till the day he passed. He was an avid fan of the school's athletic programs, especially the men's and women's basketball teams. Making Cedarville part of the railroad's backstory was an easy decision. Any other reference would have been out of place. But changing the spelling of Cedarville involved another part of Dad's past. Early in my dad's professional career, he worked for Western and Southern Life Insurance. In the 1970s and 80s, Western and Southern had a circular logo with an intertwined W and S. Dad always commented that this logo would make a perfect railroad logo. So to incorporate that old logo in with Dad's railroad, I had to change the spelling of Cedarville to start with an S instead of a C. You can see the result in the inset picture. I never got confirmation from Dad if he liked the change or not. As I've talked, 573 has been sorting cars in the background and setting out the cars headed to Hampton. We'll watch the rest of the work in Cedarville, and I'll pick up the narration when we head west. The first shot of our train heading west is crossing over 10 Mile Creek. The town of Marwin and the 10 Mile Creek are named after the road my dad grew up on. The road is called Marwin 10 Mile, and the house my grandfather built in the 1930s is still there today. The scene at Marwin is another scene that captures what my dad liked. Trains running behind some of the scenery, running through the scene as opposed to in front of it. Scenes where the railroad is just part of daily life, not the center of attention. Our train has returned to Hampton, but our work is not yet done. The empty hoppers must be pushed back to the gravel pit, and the freight cars placed on the team track. And before we can get started, the caboose needs to be spotted on a spare yard track to get out of the way. As we switch the gravel pit, you'll notice the empty hopper we left earlier in the day has since been loaded. Because the track's in just past the crossing, loaded cars have to be kept on the east end of the cut of cars. This requires 573 to pull the loaded car back to the yard and sort it to the east end of the cut before the entire cut can be spotted. Because there is no rush on getting the hoppers back to the gravel pit, 573 will spot the boxcar and the tanker car on the team track first. These cars arrived out of order from the N&W, so the boxcar has to be spotted first. Now that the freight cars have been spotted, 573 can finish swapping the hopper cars around. Then 573 will push the hoppers back to the gravel pit for loading. When I've operated my dad's layout before, he was always with me. We talked more than we operated, and we never followed any strict rules. This was the first time I ran an entire operating session by myself on his layout. I didn't know at the time I would never run trains with him again. What stunned me beyond all expectations is how flawlessly Dad's layout ran. I ran 573 at very slow speeds the entire time. It never stalled. There were no derails. The only time I had to reshoot a shot for the video was when I made an operating error. Dad's layout is small, roughly 12 foot by 12 foot in a U shape with a 4-foot tail for the gravel pit. My parents' basement isn't conducive to hosting people, so very few people have ever seen it. Dad was a champion of small layouts. He preferred them over the large empires that you often see featured in magazines like Model Railroader. He appreciated smooth operation and intimate settings that imitated being down by the tracks. My earliest memory of model railroading with my dad was a Christmas Eve in the 1970s. I was quite young, certainly under the age of 10. From my bedroom, which was directly above the 4x6 basement train table, I heard the familiar sound of a model railroad engine running. Dad was test running my Christmas gift, an in-scale chassis system F unit. I joined him downstairs for what is now one of my fondest Christmas memories. Between Dad's passing in September and the narration of this video in October, I attended the Division 7 annual train show. The void of driving over and walking into the show was heavy on my heart. Worse, I had to pay for my own admission. Dad always insisted on paying the admission in recent years because I was doing the driving. But it was a very awkward and lonely feeling walking into that train show without him. This was never meant to be a tribute video. But since I don't know what Dad did in the 2 weeks between getting home from vacation and going into the hospital, this may honestly be the last time the railroad was ever operated. I'm sure as I remove things for Mom, each engine will take one more pass across the layout for old time's sake. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this video, and far more important to me is that you enjoyed Dad's layout. If you did enjoy the layout, do me a favor and give me a like. It's just nice to know people did see his work and appreciated it. Thank you.